If the topic's interesting, it'll be good. Are we on the air?
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't even play the song, did we? Hi. Just a minute, don't go away. Here's our roll thing. Somebody should have warned me. Was I walking around just running my mouth? Hi. Welcome to class today. We have 2 more classes. And today what I want to do is, among other things, is to go over review what the exam is going to be. And then have a little more to present on the self, just a little bit, and tell you why. And then we have our presentation. We have 2 articles. And I think 2 people is Rebot, what's his name, Rezabeth here? Rezabeth, yeah. And Sonia are going to present. And then hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about projection, which will be another thing for the test. So let me see. Where do we plunge in? Yeah, those of you, you've been turning in your papers, getting them in on time, and the grader is giving you information back on it. And that sort of goes on in conjunction with the class. And so let's just plunge in. The class is actually, let me tell you all this for the taping, is the class is actually, we're going to meet and go to the Holocaust Museum. It's not required but for anybody, but for extra credit, they'll get 2 extra credits if they go to the Holocaust Museum and write an article about it. In terms of the positive and negative, you'll find much of yourself in there. And all of these people. So you can do that too. You can get extra credit. You get 2 points for going there, and then a 3rd point would be an article or a movie or something you're interested in. And that'll all move up your grade from, say, a B to a B plus or B plus to A. I'll move you a notch if you do 3 extra credits, knowing that the Holocaust Museum counts 2 that trip. And when I was over there a couple of weeks ago setting up our group to go, I mentioned to the woman who's in charge of groups, and I said, I have something within me says you're, in order to merit a Bachelor of Arts degree or a baccalaureate degree, you must go and see as much of the world as possible. And I sort of think a trip to the Holocaust Museum is something that can be disturbingly meaningful and something we all should not forget about, and see the depth of what human beings are capable of doing when we turn each other into enemies and project our own dark side on one another. And it happens all the time. We can't help but do it. We do it all the time. So those of you that are mad at your parent or sweetheart, or mad at somebody somewhere, there's a little bit of projection going on in there. For all of us. And we'll look at that hopefully as we get through the class today. Okay, so let's just review for the exam. And again, the purpose of the exam is for informing us. And this is just straight out of the stuff we've done in class. And I'll put it up here. A first question on the exam, and you'll have 9 of them, and you use bullets and write. But the first one is these archetypes of masculine and feminine energies. And these energies of the masculine energy of hierarchy, competition, competitive, aggressive, achievement, mastery of skill. I guess I have head, logos, rational. And you have this from your notes. And so the question would be, is the masculine and feminine archetypes abound in cultural experiences? We see these energies. And so list 4 adjectives that describe each one and give a cultural example of each. And so the feminine, heart, eros, intuition, egalitarian. I guess what I prefer is you use more of these words down here. I'm asking for 4. It doesn't make any difference. It's just cooperative versus competitive, receptive versus aggressive, living in process versus achievement, and relationship with the earth. And what would be an example of a culture that has strong feminine energy that we've looked at over the semester? Yeah, Native Americans would be one. And I think many of the East Asian cultures, although we've seen plenty of masculine energy. And what would be some masculine cultures that tend to focus on this side? Northern European, United States. And the point is that we need both of these. The problem, it seems, is that we have an overdeveloped masculine energy and not enough feminine energy in Western civilization. And we might say that feminine cultures might be what, like, related to family relationships would be Hispanic cultures. Are you with me? More aggressive cultures, maybe Northern European cultures like that, German cultures, things. So you got it, just seeing that in both sides. So that's a question. Another question is, list 4 religious stances towards homosexuality, 4 views of religion. Remember that when we looked at that? And one is the rejecting punitive. And then the next one is the rejecting non-punitive. And let me just back up. The rejecting punitive is condemns and ostracizes homosexuals. They use literalism, and there's an unconditional rejection. They're sinful and they're going to hell. See, and that's a view that a lot of people have, and they can find scriptural basis, whatever scriptural text they use. Then there's other people who reject it, but have a non-punitive view. They maintain homosexuality is unnatural, it must be condemned, but not the person. You hate the sin, but love the sinner. And this supports civil liberties. They say, but nevertheless, it's wrong, but you don't punish people for it. And then the 2 more views on that is the qualified acceptance view. And these people say that homosexuality is wrong, but the people cannot change psychologically or physically. And if one can't refrain, he must stay in his own community or her own community. That's that qualified acceptance. I think people move across this invariantly. Maybe you start at one place and you move to another as you grow and learn and discover. And then the last one is full acceptance view. Sees sexuality as important to human life, and the ethics include commitment, trust, tenderness, respect, and for sexual preference. And it's full of religious blessing. And then there's full acceptance of not only civil rights, but religious rights as well. And we're seeing a lot of that go on. But my point in giving you this is to see that people are different places, and in a sense to respect people in different places, even if you don't agree with them. Most people have reasons for being there. And then another one is, another question is, what's the difference between fate and destiny? It's not too difficult, is it? And fate would be the givens in life, the cards you're dealt. And what are examples of each? Remember, I had here race, gender, family, your name, your culture, your IQ, your basic body structure, your DNA, time and place, national, economic situation, all that were givens. And your destiny then would be the choices you make given your fate. It would be what you do with your fate, or how you play the cards that have been dealt by choices. And you might say we are victims of our fate. We have no choice. But we're not victims of our destiny. We can choose to grow and work on attitudes and have gratitude toward life and work through our destiny. And then examples would be education, our career choices, our attitudes. What's another one would be? Our beliefs would be, and these things can kind of change through time, through experiences. We'll actually one day find that our fate and destiny work really well together. And that's kind of I'm 57 years old. And just go with me on that. All the things you got shafted on, one day you'll think, wow, that's really my sacred story, and it's not a bad thing. Okay, that's another question. And another question is biculturality. We talked about that. And remember, there was triculture and quadculturality. The question is, define biculturality with an example. And so it's cultural identification and cultural differences without one culture being superior to another. Cultural identification and cultural differences. Identifying with two cultures, with neither one being superior. And in that it's the experiences of minority culture with a comprehensive exposure to the majority culture and an adaptation to both. And what would be an example of that? Bless you. What's an example of that? Hello. A gay person living in a predominantly non-gay world. What's another example? You're not getting away that easily. An Islamic person living in a primarily, I guess, Christian or nominal nothing world. What's another example of that? What? A what?
Hispanic person living.
Yeah, a Hispanic person who's rooted in their Hispanic culture, maybe working in a predominantly white culture. What's another example of that?
A teacher being around a bunch of doctors.
A teacher what?
Being around a bunch of doctors.
Yeah, being around a bunch of peers, that might be it too. It could be women working in a predominantly male culture. And with that is, that question is, what are 4 factors that determine success in living in 2 or more cultures? Oops. And actually there were 6 if you remember on the deal, and I'm just asking for 4 because I'm just a heck of a guy. I'm just a real swell professor. So the 6 factors, one of them was cultural overlap. This is how we can succeed in doing that. And that's the similar values and beliefs, the effects of assimilating into another culture, and the effects of social isolation or involvement. So how much does a culture overlap, see, with the other culture? If there's not much cultural overlap, it's probably more difficult. Another one is cultural translators, mediators, and models. And these are sort of people that help us move from one culture to another. Remember, this was right out of our book. There's that article, and it's referring to homosexual bisexuality, but me and my great wisdom and insight have transposed it into other things. The third factor that helps people successfully live in various cultures is corrective feedback, positive and negative feedback from mentors, to find group norm from minority culture and majority culture. That's what that says. May be a long, difficult process, and it may not be possible. For some people, it just may not be possible. Regardless of what it is, whether it's religious or social or ethnic or sexual, or may not be possible. There's 3, and then I had 3 more. To the degree we develop good problem-solving skills, and sometimes therapists help us do that, it helps to have good ego strength and to use analytical skills. Outside help is often necessary. And as a therapist, having read and studied this article, I think a lot of times I help people do that. I have done it without even knowing it. Another one is language skills, to the degree the subcultures speak different languages. And the ability to move back and forth. I find some of my students use a subculture of, I don't know, collegeese language when they write me emails, like they don't capitalize their I's, and instead of writing Y-O-U, they write U. What is that called? Sort of a Ebonic kind of thing? And often I say what? Why don't you write it again? So it's really interesting. So you may write like that to your friends, but when you're writing to me, please use correct sentences. Otherwise, I'm not fulfilling my role as a pedagogue. Vocabulary, speech patterns, etc. And then the sixth one is our appearance. Use of dress may enhance or inhibit bicultural socialization process. Cool? So I'm asking you to define it and just give me 4 of them if you choose to answer that question. Moving along. Next one we went through is Westerhoff's 4 stages of faith development. And we looked at a lot about religion. That affects so much about culture is our God images and our faith development. And Westerhoff has 4 interesting stages. Our experience faith. These where we imitate the actions of others. Rituals, sight, sound, smells. It's what we do as a group. Experiential faith. And this is pretty much as he says here in childhood. Get a pointer. Ooh. Aren't the colors good today? So it'd be part of childhood. And then in adolescence we move into affiliative faith development, he says, where it's belonging to a group, where your friends and family of faith, we imitate the group, we do whatever the group believes, we kind of go along. Part of the reason is because we really haven't sorted out our own belief system, and this isn't bad, it's just a developmental stage. And then another one was searching faith, and this often occurs in late adolescence and midlife, and this is where doubts and questions and no blind allegiance. The head is added to the heart. Wait a minute. I'm not sure. This empty tomb, this Easter thing talks about, what do you mean about that? And what is that about? And I tell people often you have to separate your scientific mind from your symbolic mind, your heart mind. Seeking certainty, and 2 directions we go in our searching. And one is we just sort of chunk the whole thing and sort of let the ego, which is part of the developmental, or we move to the next stage. And then the last one is owned faith. And this is saying what I believe after exploring doubts, and it's not just believe, it's sort of like enveloping the mystery in one's life and finding some way to connect with the sacred. Interesting, Carl Jung said the problem with Western civilization is unlike the people in India, Hindus, we don't have a corner of the room with a curtain hanging and a kneeler behind it where you start your day acknowledging whose you are and whose life it is. And I thought, what an interesting symbol. But this owned faith is vital, intimate connection with divine, and it's full of paradoxes and ironies, and it kind of has a more adventurous experience to it. And many people. How many know people at this 4th stage that you know? Does anybody know anybody at this 4th stage that you respect and acknowledge and say, that's interesting? I think as you get older, you'll find people that you go, oh, they're operating out of some different form of awareness. And then, so that question was list and describe Westerhoff's 4 stages of faith development. And for your own awareness, remember I'm saying list and describe. So in order to get 5 points on the question, just give a few words describing it. Shapur, thank you. Everybody sign the roll? Okay. And then another question is to define the self. We looked at ego as a central aspect of as one center of the human experience, a personality, and then this semester, this part of the course, we've looked at the self, and that's what creates, generates, and integrates life. It's a great promoter of wholeness, the unifier of the collective, unconscious. It's the center guiding force of life. It's the source. Allah, God, the more. In another word, another word is your higher self. If you had a conflict, see, I hope this doesn't sound so esoteric that you all are just checking me out. If you have a real conflict, which life will present many real conflicts, and you reflect on it and you wrestle with it, you'll have to decide, are you going to do are you going to just respond out of ego defensiveness? Or are you going to say, well, maybe there's a higher thing here that might hurt in the short run but be honorable in the long run? You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm talking about. Is that higher self, that more magnanimous self, that part of you that often knows better but often has a hard time doing it. That's what I'm talking about, is the mystery within, that higher self, and it's a deeper place with which to relate. And so the question is, define the self, and you might use 3 of these terms here. And with that question is, what are 5 ways we encounter the self throughout our lives? And I just gave you a boatload of things. And often it's in our dreams, it's in the things that humble us, it's in fairy tales, it's in experiences that go, whoa, there's something going on here. Often it's in our interests and passions for life. You ought to pay attention to those, because that's your higher self speaking. Our spontaneous energies, the dreams, the one you had last night, and the ones you have, where do you think that's coming from? It's coming from another source. Crises often bring out, in fact, what's interesting is a crisis will often bring out the best, even in the most self-centered, shallow person. A crisis, you may see something come out. The aha moments and the oh shoot or shucks, I'm trying to keep it clean, things that bring us awe and wonder are encounters with that higher self. And sacred stories from our religious world and all that. Oh, numinous experiences, things where we get winked at. Just things that connect us, agonies and ecstasies that connect us. So the question is, define the self, and then list 5 ways that we encounter this other center of our human personality. And one of the big ones, which we'll look at later today, is projections. I am what I adore, and I am what I hate. The hate part would be the shadow, the negative shadow. The positive part would be your own gold and our projections. I mean, if you want to learn about yourself on any given day, make a list of 3 people or things you don't like in them, and that's your stuff. It may take you months and years to figure it out, but you'll get it. And if you write down 3 things you really like and turn you on and make you feel good, whatever it is, or things you admire, well, that's you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be turned on to it. And then the question is, how are you attending to that? For example, if you see a beautiful piece of art and you are struck by it, well, what do? Just walk on, or do you go back and study it and maybe pursue it? It's that kind of stuff. It's follow your projections and you'll find your soul. Okay. And then another question, looking at the time here, another question I have that you don't have yet. This question is, it's really that the problem is not the ego, the problem is being egocentric. And the point is, where's my little map? The point is the ego, living out of the ego is just not enough. In cultural psychology, we're going to all end up killing each other if it's just my ego fighting your ego. I want what I want when I want it, and I have a right to get it, and to hell with you. If we live like that as a people, we'll all be destroyed. I mean, but if we dare to let the conflicts and the differences move us into another place, what we may find that life is even richer than we ever thought. Life in the self, in this higher place within. Let me give you, I have several, I'll give you just 4 or 5 of them here. Life in the self is positive and fulfilling. Whereas it's life in the self, and it's my ego plus my deeper self. It's not one or the other. It's using them both. It's positive and fulfilling, whereas the ego alone is negative and uncreative. But life in the self is positive and fulfilling. The second is the self lives creatively. Even when we sleep, we're getting these creative images. And to live creatively in the broader sense, it's to make your life a symphony, a work of art. To have a sense of awe and wonder about your own human experience, to live creatively. It's a creative response to problems. See, not just one way or the other, but it's saying, wait a minute, there might be some ways to solve this problem we don't even know about. And that comes from the unconscious, from the deep self down within. And it's being creative in our work, in our play. I mean, if you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, you're just living out of ego. You're not living out of the self. In our relationships, the self lives creatively. In our theology, in our learning, in our very being as a person, is to live creatively, not to get stuck in the same thing. And some of y'all, in the midst of college, you want to change directions and go take some courses that just seem interesting. Well, yeah, creatively, go for it. Explain it to your parents later. Tell them Dr. Agan told you you could. But it's kind of like not getting stuck in a rut, but to think outside the box and have some fun with life. A third one is the self, the greater self, S-E-L-F. It yearns to be lived. With passion. Man, if you don't have passion, you miss life itself. The self yearns to be lived. There's an inner hunger. There's an inner hunger that we all have to express ourselves and to call forth unused talents and our courage. And you know, it takes such courage to do something different, meet other people, take a walk on the wild side, you know. Our love, you know, I had such fun. I had lunch with my girlfriend. Actually, she paid for lunch at Brennan's Easter Sunday, which is like $45 a whack. She asked me to go. I didn't have to wait long to say, yeah, you're buying, I'm there. But I always stop by when, you know, meet with her folks or something. Or just, anyways, it was Easter lunch, right? And so I stopped by the Randall's. I was going to get a lily or something. You know, just give the ladies a lily. Are you with me? Is anybody with me? And they had these funky little, oh, she went down there. These little ceramic egg shells things, like they were ceramic, cut off and colored, and then they had a little rose bush. Well, it's part of my creative side that says, hey, that's cool. Can we do something with that? And she said, yeah, the lady at Randall's, we went around and we got this little colored sack, and she puts that green paper, dropped these things in there. I mean, what was it? It was under $10 for the whole deal. But to go and just celebrate that, and to show up at, you know, lunch after church, whatever, and just say, hi, where are we? Happy Easter. And just to see the fun and joy of that, well, that comes out of, see, because there's a part of me that can say, don't be silly, don't do that. What are you trying to kiss up? Yada, yada, yada. But it was a spontaneous thing that was just creative, and saw that standing in Randall's, and I thought, wouldn't that be fun? And of course, it brings joy in other people's life. That's what to live. The self yearns to express itself, and it's risky to do it because, you know, we get and our potentials. And life in the self, give you a couple of more, it has intensity, significance, and color. It's almost like the cornucopia of all the around us is That's the psyche. That's the soul. That's the presence of the source of life within us. It has an intensity about it. You see people with dead eyes, flat affect, just going through the motions, never feeling life intensely, positive or negative. They are living out of the shallow ego. They have not been plunged in. And this intensity often comes from crises and tragedies and difficulties. These difficulties in life often take us deeper and open up wide to a brighter spot. And often dealing with other races and religions and ethnicities, it's like it really disturbs the ego, but I'm telling you, the soul just loves this stuff because it makes life more vital. Two more, and then... so it's not the ego alone, it's this other side. And life in the self, number 5, is... the self, the inner world. This is all the same thing. You have all those, the inner world. It cannot be cut off, predicted, formalized, contained, possessed, or calculated. You just start telling life what it's about and how it should be, and you will come. See, life in the inner world, the mystery, it can't be cut off, predicted, formalized, contained, possessed, or calculated. It's a life of its own, and my ego has to somehow get with it and adjust to it. Actually, in other words, it's full of surprises. We buried my aunt this weekend. We all gathered really from around the country. She was 85, and her husband died 55 days before she died. And we went over, and he was 86 or 88, 3-star general. I did this. I think I did that. Was I with y'all when that happened? Well, anyway, my aunt died. See, they both had Alzheimer's. And often one will die after another one, 2 people in their later years. When one passes, the other one will pass soon. And it was sooner than we all thought. But this weekend we all gathered and we went through, we had 2 services, one at the Air Force Village, these were retired Air Force people, and then one at this church downtown San Antonio. And, you know, it's like, hello, here we are again. We got to stop meeting like this. And these are all the cousins and people. And it was full of rich conversation and, you know, the people you don't really like and the people you didn't know and come to like. And it's just full of the self, full of the mystery of life, full of things you can't control and don't know. And we were laughing that we need to all get together and without having to bury somebody. But I got to tell you, this was just so funny. There was about 20 people that came to the church service, because elderly people, and there was this one older lady. This was Saturday before Easter. And she was close to 90, and her husband there, I think he was 90 and she was 88. And these dear, interesting old people kind of walking along. And they had known my aunt and uncle for many years. And what was funny is she had a little bunny on her blouse, this elderly woman, celebrating Easter, right? But it was a Playboy bunny. It was a Playboy bunny. And of course the fun was, and this is sort of like life in the self, you know, it's like, you know, it's just life is full of mystery. And of course the fun was like was she an original, or does she bless her heart, she probably doesn't even know what she's doing. Somebody gave her this thing and said, well, it's Easter, I'll put it on. And so we all laughed about, you know, her in her older age, you know, to do funny things like we all would. But then, you know what the last thing we said? She probably does know what she's doing. And she's just being spunky and making all of us young people a sort of, she's fooling us all. She knew exactly what she was doing. But I highly recommend something like that. A Playboy bunny for Easter. Somehow that's just so wonderful. Another thing, it's such dichotomy and irony and paradox and celebration of life. And another one is the life in the self creativity, all of this is within us. Those of you that do music, when the muse is working, that's another word for the self, and something's happening, you know, it's in all creation. It's all in all relationships and our experiences of life. See, and it's really, it's the essence, it's the capacity. It provides, the ego can't do this alone, but the self, the deeper life we all have in touch with it is there. It's the capacity to love others for who they are. See, and not for who we want them to be. Not for who we want them to be. Now that's actually a quote from John Sanford. And boy, doesn't that really speak to cultural psychology and celebrating each of us, who y'all are, who am I, and not forcing everybody to be the same. Yeah, question. Of others. Oh, I didn't get that right, did it? Practically for love of others. Thank you. Love of others for who they are, including our parents, our siblings, our friends, strangers, everybody in life. But anyway, so another question, and this is a whole other question, would be, what are, give me 5 traits. I just gave you 6. I have 9 here. But 5 traits of how the self expresses itself over the ego, the limited ego. And okay, so we will stop there and have our little presentation. So that's another question you can answer. I have 2 more. You should have 7 down there. Do you now? 7. You should have 7. Does anybody have 7? You got 8? Oh, that's cool. Isn't that fun? You should have 7. And I'm going to give you 2 more. So let's have our presentation for today. And then if we have a chance, we'll come back and talk about projection. And then we'll look at stereotypes and the last guys. Sonia, y'all want to come on up? And Ruthbeth, is that it? Ruthbeth? Ruthbeth. Yeah.
That's a very important disk in a computer in the library.
Review of the bell curve. This whole article is about the individual's IQ and mentally retarded individual geniuses. Hurston and Murray also emphasize that intelligence is also based on the factor in cognitive ethnic differences. Example, there are differences between the blacks and whites in terms of intelligence, but according to Robert, this is not true. In my opinion, factors mentioned in the article not always apply pertaining to the individual's IQ. Besides that, I also believe that individual is not the individual's IQ or intelligence is not the modifiable. You can probably improve an individual's IQ or performance, but not bring a total change on the person. So I have a question. Does culture have any effect on the individual's intelligence? What do you think?
I don't really think so. I think everybody has the capacity to learn as much as they can or be like as smart as they can be. It doesn't depend on the culture. It just depends on, I think it depends on the environment.
Anything else? That's all.
No, you can't go there. Come on, what's the other side of that argument, guys? What? What's the other side of the argument? He said nurture.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with your, sometimes your intelligence and how much you learn. A lot of it has to do with your upbringing. Like if you know, like your upbringing when you're a kid, that your parents read to you, that you have, you know, are your parents educated? Your parents' education levels, to me, in my opinion, is critical. Because if you have a parent that went to college or, you know, have some kind of education, they'll probably read to you and they'll be more into your schoolwork and, you know, like from, you know, like first grade and up to maybe middle school, they're interested in your homework and when you bring on homework, as compared to kids who parents probably work at McDonald's or who parents are not educated. So
okay, go ahead and say you're using the same argument that it's nature, it's nurture. What's the other side of that? What's the other side of intelligence? Nature, good DNA, and I guess
being born with it.
Do what?
Like you mean like with a genus?
Well, I'm telling you that yeah, so much of it has to do with. I mean, there are some people whose elevator doesn't go to the top floor just because they were born. They just don't have genetically don't have as high IQ as somebody else. I think it's the dance between nature and nurture. But if you don't get fed in early years, it can have huge effect on your brain chemistry. And no matter how much you get read to later, if you don't get fed and given proper diet in those first 6 months of life, it'll have huge effect on you.
You gotta look at the standard of what you're judging by too, because there's like autistic people.
Yeah, exactly.
Like geniuses that can like play the piano.
Exactly.
And stuff like that.
So it's a dance between both, absolutely, nature and nurture. What we're given, and then our environment. Great, good job, Sonia.
I also covered the for whom the bell curve tolls. He covers the issues of the book referring to psychological science dealing with the nature of intelligence and the people's theories of nature and of intelligence, societal sorting by cognitive abilities, job performance to understanding the factors that influence IQ. And lastly, he comments a lot on the popularization of this book. The nature of intelligence, Murray says that by now, beyond significant technical dispute, there's a general factor of cognitive ability on which human beings differ. And then Sternberg, the author, quotes another scholar that says intelligence is made up of two factors, which she also said, a general factor which permeates all tests of intelligence, and specific factors, each of which is relevant to one particular test. Sternberg says that, respect to psychology, many investigators don't accept a general factor in their theories of intelligence, adding that the existence of general factor is certainly not beyond the significant technical dispute. So he says that Herrnstein's and Murray's statements is incorrect. And then people have many conceptions about the meaning of intelligence, and that Herrnstein and Murray say that IQ scores match to a first degree. Whatever it is that people mean when they use the word intelligent or smart is ordinary language. Others say intelligence regarding the IQ is made up of verbal ability, practical problem-solving ability, and social competence. Sternberg finds that Herrnstein and Murray is to be incorrect, since IQ tests measure only a part of what people mean by intelligent in ordinary language. Because cross-cultural work shows that what is considered intelligent behavior in one cultural setting may be actually opposed to what is considered intelligent in another. Sternberg says that Murray and everyone else do not have a very good understanding of the factors that influence IQ yet, but Herrnstein and Murray say that the professional consensus in the U.S. has experienced dysgenic pressures throughout most of the century. So Sternberg says obviously such pressures should result decreases in IQ over time. And then he says a report says that the tendency for IQ scores to drift upward as a function of years since standardization has now been substantiated. So Sternberg says that IQ cannot shift up or down at the same time. So if we can't understand this change, then we are in position to understand sources of difference within a given time. And then he says that this book that is either, say it's scapegoating people with low IQs intentionally or maybe unintentionally. And then he ends it with saying that we need to be concerned about the amount of attention this book is receiving as much as what it says. Then we'll realize the bell curve toll is not just for society is unfortunate, but for us all. So my question is, what do you think intelligence is based on?
I think it's all three: practical, verbal, and the other one. I forgot.
Social competence.
Social, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I agree on. Anyone else?
Go ahead, Sage.
Go ahead.
Oh, wait, come on.
Have a high IQ, but you'd be a completely non-functional person in society because you just can't get the common sense right. So it just depends on who's judging it for whatever you need. Like an employer would rather have someone that's functional and can work in a business atmosphere. Whereas if you're going to do research or if you're trying to think abstractly, someone in that type of field might want someone that just has a higher IQ that can think that way.
Right.
And then you have like the theory of multiple intelligence, you have musical intelligence, you have athletic intelligence. There's so many different areas that one tests and they can be able to measure your capacity for different kinds of thinking.
Yeah, I agree.
Very good, Kelly.
That's it.
Remember years ago when they came out with the emotional quotient? You remember that? Some people are really good with social skills and not intellectual. The other thing I heard is that in medical school, the A students do research, the B students teach, and the C students make all the money. Meaning they probably have better people skills, as it were, but that's not always true. Of the three, or as a good teacher, I would say, Sage, what do you think is more important? You go first.
I guess being a business.
Push that button.
Being a business major, I guess, to me, your interpersonal skills and the way you deal with people, crisis and situations. I guess to me, it's more important than just graduating with a 4.0. Because I have friends, I know people who graduate with high GPAs and went to work for big companies, and probably 6 months later they couldn't function well because just didn't have their people skills.
Yeah, it's almost an art form to have a parent who's exceedingly intelligent but is a terrible parent because they don't know how to hold and love and play and relate. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. You done?
Yeah.
Great job. Way to go. Y'all are so great to do this. We have one more presentation next time. Who's doing it next time? Who's on the last day? By yourself? Oh, yes. Well, we have time. I can talk about projection now and kind of what that's about. It's really, this course is so interesting. We kind of interface it. We're kind of covering everything all at once, as it were, because all of these topics y'all are reading on are worthy of great discussion. In my cultural psych class that meets live on campus, we take a lot of time and get into a lot of heated discussion about these things we look at rather superficially here. But not looking at them deeply does not mean that they're not important, nor are there issues we have to address and deal with. What I want to talk about now in light of, and I guess we do this at some level, we do this all the time, whether we know it or not, is this whole concept of projection. Projection. And perhaps we can even say this talking about IQ. You know, we all have a dumbling within, we all have a genius at some level where, as Kelly was saying, whether it's athletic or intellectual or social, we all have these things. And if you remember, projection is really the contents of the inner world, the soul or the psyche, the self, which is actually both is both center and circumference. The ego owes its existence to the self. But actually, one of the ways the ego deals with things, the inner world often gets thrown it out on other people, and that's called projection. Ject is to throw, pro is to throw it out. Introjection would be to bring it back. Those things I throw out on other people, blame them for all my problems, and discover I've got the same problems. Worship them to be my savior and my hero. I just need to find a smart, intelligent, bright, gifted, powerful person to save me and rescue and take care of me. Well, I feel sorry for you if you do, because you won't find your own power within, your own intellect within, your own life within. You'll look for a savior out there because you won't find it within inside. But we all do this, and I want to talk a little bit about what that is, and you'll be so impressed. I've actually did this before class. We've been doing this. The whole class is the one way I've approached this class is to look at, understand projections, because we're doing this all the time with each other. Let me give you an example before I read this down. Over here, in fact, I woke up at 4:30 and watched myself on TV this morning from my gender class, and I was damn good. I got to tell you, I was talking about Iron John, the masculine psychology, and it actually kept me awake. I went, "Hey, Gan, you're on a roll, buddy. This is good, hot stuff." Usually I watch myself when I wake up and go back to sleep within minutes because I know his jokes, I know his whimsical ways. But what example, when you go to the movie, stay with me here. When you go to a movie, you don't really see the movie. You don't see the film. Did you know that? You don't see the film. The film is actually in this big machine, in this enormous machine in the back, up in the projector room. Actually, it's on a projection. What you see is the film through light and magnification. You see what's on the film projected on the screen. Like if you walked up to the screen and touched it, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. What you see is an illusion and an image of what is in the machine, which is usually at your back. So what you're seeing is the images on this film projected in front of you. So simply what that means is what you see on the screen tells you what's in the machine. So projection is simply a way of getting to know oneself. The things I am attracted to and the things that turn me off really tell you about me. Because we're all attracted to and turned off to different things at different times. It tells you about what's in the projector, me, by what I lay on other people or see in other people. When I learned, somebody told me that about 15 years ago, and it's so interesting. Every time I go to a movie, a film, I'm often going, isn't this interesting? I'm not really seeing what's there. What I'm seeing is actually behind me, and I'm seeing it thrown up in front of me. So projection then is the transferal of our unconscious contents onto another person or object. This is a test question. What is projection? It is the transferal of our own unconscious contents onto another person or object. It is natural, it is unintentional, and it is automatic. You can't not do it. Unconscious. our own unconscious, thank you, contents. Someone said, your image of God tells you more about you than it does about God. I told a client just the other day, you got to change your God image. You got this image of somebody's a bully, it's going to just beat you up, and that you're going to turn or burn one day. You have this negative view. You need to get a new God image, update it a little bit. Because this person was just living in fear and dread of all of life and after death, you know. And I said, you might work on the image by reading and discovering and listening. And okay, so it's the transferal of unconscious contents onto another person of object. It's natural, unintentional, automatic process. Every one of you did this as a little kid, looking in the face of mommy and daddy. See? You transferred your life onto them. You know, I love you, I like you, I need you. You know, you idolize, and we all do that growing up. Why do we project? We project negatively to get rid of negative, painful flaws and uncomfortable discomforts or problems. We project negatively because we don't like to deal with things that are uncomfortable, and so we'll project them out on somebody else. Negative, painful flaws, our discomforts, or our problems. It's almost an art form that we find, as it were, certain, in every culture, every tribe, we find races and ethnic groups that become the dog that all of the majority society kicks. Because we can't stand that life is limiting, that we don't always win, that we're losers at times. We can't accept that we're not always on top. And so if I can't accept the loser in me, I will find some loser to beat on. Be that a race, an ethnicity, religion. You even see it in the adult world who'll freak out over teenagers who have spiked hair and earrings pierced every place you can imagine. And tattoos everywhere, and you can go, oh, those crummy, lousy, no good for nothings. Well, we all have a crummy, lousy, no good for nothing part of our own life. And until you meet that, you will often attack others. So why do we project? We project to get rid of negative, painful flaws, discomforts, and problems that we won't accept for ourselves. And we project positively as an expression of our positive attributes, talents, and strength. In other words, if we just get a better president, someone who would save us, someone who would be a hero, a star, if we get the best president, then we won't have any more problems. I won't have to take responsibility for my life. I'll have a savior. He'll make sure or she, how about that? Did you hear that Freudian slip of a stereotype? If I just get the right president, then this president will be responsible for all my happiness. I just got to find somebody to marry that'll take care of all my sufferings. Is anybody looking for that? If I just find the magical other, wherever he or she is, then I'll be happy. If I could just make enough money, see, if I just become like Donald Trump, if I could just, you know, I mean, how many thousands of people are trying out to win and be, see, because if I can, and so what I do is I project positively on another to make them responsible for our own happiness. And one of the things that I did in class, and I've got 4 reasons we need to recognize our projections. But one of the things I did in class, throughout the whole of the semester, if you'll notice some of my clever pedagogical style, my teaching style, was we looked at blacks. And remember, I said, what are your positive projections? Remember we said things like, and these are stereotypes, I know, but we said we like their spirituality, and I know this is huge, but I'm just trying to honor it positively. We like their passion, and what else did we say?
Full of life.
Yeah, life, force, and their emotionality, and I know I'm talking general by saying they, but I'm using positive projection stereotypes. We did blacks, we did Hispanics. And I said, what do you like about these people? See, we're projecting. We said family. And what else was it? Positive aspects of Hispanics. their food. And see, y'all just said that, and you're already projecting on Hispanic. We don't even know these people or individuals. We're doing that. Their religious world, often people said, yeah, their ritual and stuff. And then we did whites. And we liked people said their ability to organize society, their ability to deal with money. Well, we all have that ability. We can learn it from other people. We like somebody said their caregiving, seem to respond. And these are, again, stereotypes, projections. And then we did Asians. And what did we say we liked about Asians? East Asians, their discipline, the quietness, what was the other word? And I know all Asians are not quiet. Their intellect. Yeah, their humility. And I think, what else? Yeah, the listeners. And this is not just East Asian. This is Southern Asians, South Asians. We see these traits. And all I'm trying to do is awaken you to what do you like about people that are different. And these are all positive projections. And then we had a couple of more. One was, we didn't do this, but Native Americans. We like their connection with Earth and their simplicity. Gosh, do I need that in my life more. And what else was it? Native Americans. We didn't do this, but I'm going to do it real quickly. When we got to gays, and I'm saying gays more the male homosexual, we didn't do lesbians, we could have, but just using gays right off, what do you like about gays? Their creativity, and I know this is being, but I'm trying to show you how you positively project their creativity. What? Humor. Their humor? Oh, isn't that the truth? I'm doing the MS 150, and there are a couple of gay brothers on the trip, and they just keep us all in stitches. Sometimes we have to tell them to just shut up. But the humor, and what is it? Their risk-taking to be an individual and say, I can't fit into the collective. I am who I am. My gosh, that often teaches me about stop trying to please everybody and be who I truly am. And what other things? They're what? Yeah, fashion, absolutely. And art. I mean, the world is a richer place because of homosexual men who help us all stop being so narrow. And lesbian women, often my friends that are, just the strength of their character. And again, their ability to be nonconformist. Gosh. You see, so I'm just positive projection. I had another one too. And Islam, Muslims, what did you like about Muslims? Their faith, the discipline. I mean, just the thought of praying 5 times a day and connecting with the mystery of life, it's like, wow, whoa, I want that kind of spirituality that's that centered. And their family, and what else? What else? Anything you see in real religious people, or we're talking about, yeah, strong belief structure. And so what's wrong with that? You know, I want all these traits in my life. These are the positive attributes that we do. Strong belief system and deep values. My gosh, we would need that. And then, what else did we look at? Well, anyway, you get the point. And we could throw negative projections on all of these people, but beneath the negative something positive, but that'll be for another course. We won't look at that here. But so my point is, we can learn positively from people who are different. Let me give you 4 reasons we need to recognize our projections. And the first one is it creates compassion for others. It creates compassion for others. Projection allows us to have empathy. A-V-E, empathy. And feel with another. I saw a woman was trying to walk across the street coming to class today, and she had a walker. And she was, and here we were all barreling down hard in the car. And I've learned to stop way back. There's no sense in rushing up on this old lady going across the street and just scare the big Jesus out of her. But you know what? My mother was in a walker for a year and a half before she died. And I see people in walkers now, I have so much compassion for that. Because it reminds me of my mom and how she failed in her health and had to just ooch along in a walker. So it connects us with our pain with other people's pain. That's why we need to understand our projections. If I'm aware of my own suffering in life, I appreciate your suffering. If I'm not aware of my own suffering, then I'm critical of yours because I won't own my own. It also connects us with, it connects us with pain of life, with others, and we help others and are sensitive. It connects us with joy. Watching people get excited about the Masters golf tournament when that guy made that last putt, and the whole audience, granted they're all rich white people maybe, but just kidding. But everybody just jumped at the same time because his joy was our joy. That's why we watch TV and look for exciting winnings, because we can do that. But the reasons we need to recognize our projections is it creates compassion for other people. The second reason is it reduces negative separations and hostilities. See, the problem is we believe our projections to be true. So I see somebody that's lazy of another race, and I say, well, all people like that are lazy. Adults do this with teenagers. All teenagers are lazy. I tell adults all the time, older adults, they need to sleep. Their bones are ossifying. They need a lot of sleep. It's a developmental thing. But therefore we condemn before we investigate. We do condemnation before investigation. And what a egocentric way to live. We condemn before we investigate. Someone said, we would quit throwing stones if we could hear everyone's story. We would quit throwing stones if we could hear each other's story. You can't judge me. You don't know my story. But to look at our projections and say, why am I judging them without knowledge? Why am I making assumptions with that person without information? And that creates paranoia and isolation. Listen, if we don't know somebody, we fill in the gap inside of us. Because you can't tell about anybody their story until you know their story. So it helps us to recognize projections so we can stop being hostile because we don't know their story. I have to say, why am I so quick to judge? Because the reason I'm judging is it's something about me that I'm laying on them and not something on them. To make assumptions without information is the sign of an unconscious, uneducated person. Well, that's pretty direct, isn't it? That's just about as direct as you can be. And the third thing is why we need to recognize our projections. The third one is it creates constructive understanding that leads to wisdom. It's not constructive to assume that our truths are everyone else's truth. That my values are common to everyone. Our truths, this is really hard to see, and it takes a lot of years to work through this. Our truths are only true for us. And honoring your truth leads to wisdom. That my truth and my beliefs and my way of understanding life is true for me, but it's not necessarily true for someone else. It's not constructive to assume that my perspective, my values are common to everyone. I have to find out what are your truths, what are your values. And I think we find more commonality when we do that. But constructive understanding can lead to wisdom because I'm not imparting my reality on another person. Listen, if you can grasp this concept, it'll help you in your marriage beyond you can imagine. The greatest problem in marriages and relationships is assuming everybody has the same perception when they never do. And you only find it out by talking and communicating, which is the number one reason people get divorced, is they don't talk and communicate. and therefore they assume things for others without doing it. And then the last one, the last reason why we need to recognize our projections is it re-energizes us and creates oneness or intellectual solidarity. What does that mean? When I'm projecting on another person and pull it back to me, now I've got my stuff to work on. What it does is it brings back energy. Let me give you an example. If I'm going to have someone be my savior, my hero, and rescue me, my spouse, lover, friend, hero, teacher, and I finally discovered I've got to rescue and save myself, suddenly it brings new resources of creativity within me, and I'm not so allowed to be dependent. Value shifts from outside to the inside. When I find my flaw, I can work on it. When I find my own authority, I don't have to give it away to other people. When I find my life within, I'm less likely I find new energy and new solidarity. The handout I gave you, we just have a minute left, but the handout I gave you, that believers should thank God for atheists, this came in the paper a short time ago. But just this part over here that was so interesting, it says the answer is not tolerance, but intellectual solidarity. And here's what he says, this sentence here. Tolerance is a strategy for non-interference of beliefs, lifestyles of those who are different. That is classical Enlightenment view. But intellectual solidarity demands more because it entails an engagement with the other in the hope that understanding might replace incomprehension and perhaps even lead to agreement. And I think that concept is so rich in this fourth thing is when I withdraw my projection, it actually helps me value and appreciate you, not just tolerate you, but have some appreciation of the greater depth of my humanity because I learned something from you in that. So there's another test question is what is projection and what are 4 reasons we should recognize our projections? If you want to answer that when you can. Otherwise, I'll see you next class. Bye. Thank you.